SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae has put hundreds of millions back into the hands of Mississippi citizens, expanding the state's affordable college and career savings program and also returning record amounts of unclaimed money. Check out how Treasurer David McRae's office can help you, your business, or your organization. Treasury.ms.gov.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21.
Hello, good morning, and welcome on a frigid morning across the state of Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. We are 10 days from Christmas. Today is December 15th, 2025. Glad to be with you alongside Lance Delbert. I'm Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. C-Spire text line is open. Love to hear from you. Just how cold is it where you are this morning? 601-879-4395. That is the number if you want to jump into the conversation. Again, 601-879-4395. The C-Spire text line. C-Spire, customer inspired. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. Find them online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. 14 degrees where I sit this morning. What about you, Lance?
It's like 22, 21 range. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Oh,
we got
man,
it easy
you might
down
as well
here.
be wearing shorts and a Bermuda shirt.
Exactly. I was worried about you this morning. Like 14. It's like Montana
Cold,
weather.
man. Cold. But this forecast is bonkers. I mean, it's just bonkers. So yesterday the high was, I don't know, 31, 33, something like that, and it was kind of breezy. This morning down to 14. Going to get up into the low 40s today. Mid-50s tomorrow, upper 50s on Wednesday, mid-60s on Sunday, back down into the mid-40s on Friday, and then on Saturday we're in the low 60s again. And settle into the low 60s for, I don't know, basically the rest of the year. I'm having trouble with 67 degrees on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I mean, it's 60s all over the place here. Highs in the 70s in a couple days.
Yeah. Although it is, I think I've said to you before, my stance has kind of become on snow and ice and super, super cold. I want to go to that, not have that come to me.
You like to spend money to go to it. I got you. You don't
I'm okay with going to somewhere where it's snowy for the purposes of being in the snow, skiing or doing whatever outside. But I think the older I get, the more okay I am with, pretty mild temperatures. So,
like I said, you don't mind spending a little money. You don't want the discount cold. You want to invest in the cold.
Yes. I do not want buy one, get one free cold. Not at all. Not at all. Let's see. Let's sample the state. Grenada, you got sunny skies today, high of 43. Light and variable winds. Sunny and 40, maybe 41 today in Oxford. Woodville, southwest Mississippi, mainly sunny sky, 48 degrees, light and variable winds. Going to be 49 and sunny in Wiggins, right there in Stone County. Northeast winds at 5 to 10 miles per hour. How was your weekend, Lance?
I was pretty laid back, actually.
Yeah?
Got some plants covered and things like that, and enjoyed just a day off, really, Sunday, and got a few things done. Nothing exciting, though.
Just low key. Didn't sneak off to camp.
Well, the weather was terrible. I mean, here, it was raining and warm, and by Sunday morning, though, Sunday morning would have been a good morning to do a little shooting at them. I think Saturday was probably a great deer hunting day. Sunday morning seemed to be the good duck hunting day. Temperatures were a little cooler, a little windier.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as muggy, but yeah, it was just rainy here, nasty and misty.
I got a last-minute assignment for Saturday on Friday afternoon. Got a call at 3 o'clock, and the person that was assigned the game was sick, and, hey, can you go to Nashville and do the Vanderbilt basketball game? So my Saturday was going to be what you described your Sunday as, just nothing. Mm-hmm. Just kind of piddle around a little bit, and so that ended up being a 8 hours in the car Saturday with a basketball game between in the driving. It's good to get some hoops going, though.
Yeah, you feeling it yet? You have to actually call games. So how hard is that? I've always wanted to ask you, when you have to wear two hats, you're wearing football, you're wearing college basketball, and you're here at the end where football is so important right now, but you have great, you got a lot of great matchups in basketball. How do you wear those two hats so well?
Well, I don't know if I wear them well or not, but it's fun.
I think you do. So I was just giving you a little.
That's very kind of you to say that. It's funny you say that. The game itself was fine. It was like I was in terms of doing my prep work, because I kind of get into a routine with how I do that, like how I build my charts and where stuff goes and where I'm pulling information from and. Am I going to handwrite this or am I typing that? Like, there's just a little bit of a routine to that. And I hadn't done that in a year. And so I felt like I was kind of almost like spinning my tires a little bit. I didn't have a whole lot of efficiency with getting ready for the game. But once I finally got going and felt pretty good about it, like, all right, this is a process. You got to go. There's no you can't just snap your fingers and all the information's there. So turned out great.
Good. Did you have a chance to see the Army-Navy game? I know that obviously you were running around.
I did.
What a national anthem, first of all, and what a game! The
combined glee club from the Army and the Navy.
How cool was that, man? Goodness,
it was just spectacular. Have not been, want to go.
Oh yeah, that's on the bucket list there, and I don't mean like when I'm 90. I'd like to do that tomorrow, or 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. 17-16 was the final.
Yeah.
Navy won it. Yeah, great game. Nero was born on this day in 37 AD. Served 12 years as the Emperor of Rome, born in Antium, Italy. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus was the last Roman Empire of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. There was some squirrely stuff going on in the Roman Empire. He ruled from 54 to 68, so a 12-year run. Best known for his controversial reign and his artistic pursuits, including the claim that he fiddled while Rome burned, a reference to his purported activities during the Great Fire of Rome in AD 64. Nero was adopted by Emperor Claudius in AD 50. He became emperor at the age of 16 after Claudius died, but his early rule was guided by his mother, Agrippina.
Yeah, Agrippina.
Agrippina. How, though, Claudius died is quite the thing. Agrippina the Younger murdered her husband, Claudius, with poison to secure the throne for her son, Nero. All right.
That's crazy times.
And then Nero died from an assisted suicide at the age of 31.
I think everybody just tuned in to the, it's basically like soap opera back then was just whatever was going on in the palace.
Yeah. Yeah. Gustave Eiffel was born on this day in 1832, the French engineer and architect who designed and built the Eiffel Tower, born in Dijon, France. In 1892, J. Paul Getty was born, the American oil magnate and billionaire, born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was an industrialist, best known for his success in the oil industry. Businessman who founded the Getty Oil Company. By the time of his death, he was named by the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's richest private citizen. He displayed a knack for business at a young age. By the age of 24, had made his first $1 million through speculative investments in oil leases in Oklahoma. In 1949, his gamble on land in the Middle Eastern nation of Kuwait led to the discovery of one of the largest oil fields in the world, effectively securing his fortune. He was also an art enthusiast, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, art collectors of all time, had an extensive personal collection for which he established the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. You may remember hearing about that last year during the wildfires. There was a great deal of concern that those Palisades fires were threatening the Getty Museum. Despite his immense wealth, he was famously frugal. One of the most infamous examples, the installation of a payphone in his home for guests to use when they visited. Look at some things that happened this day in history when we come back, plus news headlines and your morning sports update. Just getting started on this Monday morning. Stay warm, friends. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
On your radio, on our app, or on your smart speaker. We're always free. Super Talk Mississippi, your home for Mornings with Richard Cross.
C-Spire text line. Mose says a balmy 22 in Monticello. Jeff in Grenada says it's 18 in Teoc this morning. JP says 27 in Wade, Mississippi. Where is Wade?
Delta, right? Could be wrong, but
okay.
I'll look
Paul
it up.
says it's 28 in Belmont. I thought it was supposed to be colder. CC in Senatobia, something about a well digger and a witch and all of that. That's how cold it is. On the bright side,
No, I'm wrong on that. Jackson County, it says. Wade. I
that
was
is
off.
South
Yeah, I was
Mississippi,
way
man.
off,
28 degrees in Jackson County.
Hurley, next to Hurley and Van Cleve, so juxtaposed betwixt.
Talking about the cold on the bright side may bring the Ducks down.
Yeah.
It may. Julie says it's 18 in Walnut.
Y'all got some frigid temps. It was like 22, 23 here. It wasn't that bad in the central.
So
There's a lot of
cold,
concrete here.
So cold I pulled out a $5 to pay for my coffee, and Abe was wearing a parka. All right. 14 in Hernando, 16 in Grenada, 21 in Meridian. They keep coming. Thanks for the temp updates this morning. Did you know that on this day in 1791, so December 15th, 1791, the United States Bill of Rights was ratified when Virginia gave its approval, becoming the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. Also on this day, in 1939, Gone with the Wind. The drama, directed by Victor Fleming and starring Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh, premiered in Atlanta.
I'm a big Rhett Butler fan. I liked him, a little scallywag in him, you know.
He did have that. Named Best Picture in 1940, adjusted for inflation, the highest grossing film of all time. Frankly, darling. On this day in 1944, so 5 years after Gone with the Wind debuted, General Dwight D. Eisenhower received his 5th star, something that is very, very rare in American military history. Only a handful of people have ever received it. In terms of the Army, you had George C. Marshall, Douglas MacArthur, Dwight Eisenhower, Harry Arnold, and most recently, Omar Bradley. In the Air Force, General of the Air Force Henry Arnold Arnold received that 5th star in both his Air Force and Army ranks. Fleet Admiral in the Navy, William Leahy, Ernest King, Chester Nimitz, and Bull Halsey, William F. Bull Halsey. It's a rank that was established during World War II to give American commanders equivalent rank to foreign field marshals and admirals to address command hierarchy issues. The rank remains a possibility today, but no new promotions to 5-star have occurred since the World War II Korean War era, with the last, again, being Omar Bradley. Interesting. On this day in 1955, Folsom Prison Blues, released by Johnny Cash. It was the Billboard Song of the Year in 1968. 1979, Chris Haney and Scott Abbott developed a new board game. They called it Trivial Pursuit. In 2006, American blues legend and great Mississippian B.B. King awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President George W. Bush. And finally, I don't know if he was hard up for cash. It felt like a great opportunity, or he said, what the heck am I going to do with these things? But in 2021, Bruce Springsteen sold his music back catalog to Sony Music Entertainment for an estimated $500 million, possibly the biggest deal ever for a single artist. It feels like a good decision.
Yeah, I mean, $500 million for something you did a while back.
Yeah.
And you probably don't have a lot of use for now.
Like, I can still get the words. I still know the music. I can still play the chords. I can still listen to all the music. I've got all the records. I've got all the gold records and the platinum records on the wall. They just want the rights to be able to distribute it. And they'll front me $500 million. Let's do that.
And I mean, I'm not being critical. I'm not a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I mean, there's a few good songs in there, right? I mean, but I don't know the catalog. I probably could name 3 or 4, maybe 5. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, for $500 million, you got about 5 songs.
And it wasn't a deal like with Taylor Swift where she gave up the Masters early in her career. Mm-hmm. I mean, Bruce Springsteen was, 70-something when he did this?
Yeah.
He was of sound mind. Sound as his mind could be. All right, let's get to some news headlines this morning. The number of economic development announcements that we have gotten from the governor in the past year, if you could name all of them, like all of the projects that are going, I would give you a prize. I don't know what the prize would be, but I would come up with a prize because it would be very, very impressive if you could just name them off the top of your head. This is a little bit different. And it's interesting to me. The state of Mississippi is gearing up to invest more than $100 million in economic development, infrastructure improvements, workforce training initiative, tourism campaigns, and conservation projects. So we've heard about all of these things that are going on where they are tied to specific projects. And we've gotten not lip service, but consistent conversation about we've got to be ready for these projects. We've got to lay the groundwork. We've got to make sure the workforce is ready. We've got to make sure the training is in place. Governor Tate Reeves said on Thursday that funds will be doled out in the form of government grants, funding projects aimed at strengthening Mississippi's economy and more. The investment will expand infrastructure at sites all across the state. Funding comes from MDA and a bunch of regional commissions. Tate Reeves said this: we're going to do what it takes to build an even stronger state economy that works on behalf of all of our people. Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, Mississippi's historic success wasn't built overnight. Our state is experiencing unprecedented success. because the administration has been strategic in our economic development efforts. How are they going to spend it? MDA is committing almost $29 million through its site development grant program. Springs BNSF in Marshall County, $8.5 million. Coldwater Industrial Site in Tate County, $430,000. Tupelo Lee Industrial Park, $2 million. Marion County Regional Airplex and Industryplex, $900,000. West Rankin Industrial Park, $4.8 million. North Ripley Industrial Park, $4.2 million. Mega Site in Warren County, $2.9 million. Mississippi River Energy Complex, Adams County, $1.7 million. Port Bienville Industrial Park, Hancock County, $1.3 million. And then Pearl River County Industrial Park, $110,000. And it goes on and on and on. Premier site grants, ready site grants, counties and their emergency response centers. About $100 million. Bunch of projects in the Delta, approved by the Delta Regional Authority. Projects in Washington County, Hinds County, Sunflower County, Smith County, Carroll, Coahoma, Jasper, Panola, Smith, Quitman, Covington, Jefferson, Davis, Carroll County again, Quitman County, Smith County. A lot of projects going on. A lot of good stuff. A lot of forward thinking happening across the state of Mississippi. And then specifically, a biocarbon manufacturer is locating its operations in Magnolia, Mississippi. A $100 million investment from TerraForge Biocarbon Solutions, a joint adventure between Amium and Weyerhaeuser. Company was formed to produce and sell 1.5 million tons of metallurgical biocarbon product that can substitute for coal and coke in metallurgical processing. Refers to the refining of metals and the manufacturing of alloys of different metals. State's assisting with this project. It is expected to be done in 2027. Okay. A lot going on the business dev front here in the state of Mississippi. We're back with you. More news headlines and your morning sports update presented by Pearl River Resort.
From the CA. For news, fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you. Good morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Paul and Hernando says no projects in Bolivar County. Talking about all of the investment dollars being spread out across the state. No, I don't see any projects in Bolivar County. But don't feel bad. I don't see any in Lafayette County where I live, or Madison County, or Yazoo County, Forest, Perry, Greene counties. I don't know about the distribution of those. Obviously, no projects going specifically there. A lot of that's working with, a lot of this was grant money for requests for grant dollars that was being distributed. Rough story in Scott County. The guy that went crazy in the parking lot driving the what's the truck that we call it? It's got the you use it to the yard truck. You use it to move 18-wheeler trailers around Scott County is where we go for this story. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation assessing an incident involving the Scott County Sheriff's Office, the Morton Police Department, occurred on Highway 13. Got a call and responded. Upon arrival at the scene, deputies observed the same unidentified subject driving a yard truck through a business's parking lot. They attempted to make contact, and the subject reportedly fled. On Highway 13, the driver struck a cement truck, a passenger vehicle, and an occupied school bus, at which point deputies discharged their weapons in an attempt to neutralize the subject, ultimately hitting him and killing him. No other injuries reported, no deputies hurt. Info from this investigation will be passed along to the Attorney General's office. I mean, there are, people call him a yard dog, yard truck, whatever. Little short cab. I have trouble finding any fault here. I mean, I don't know all the details. I suppose the simple solution is don't start none, won't be none. And you can also go with the whole idea if when police are asking you to stop and you don't, you open yourself up to all kinds of problems. And then when you run a truck into a school bus after I've been trying to tell you to stop for a while, my patience has ended. And in this case, so is this man's life. Man, I didn't realize it on Saturday. It was yesterday before I realized it, but this one hit close to home. Person of interest was in custody and then late last night actually was released from custody because of a lack of evidence after a shooting during final exams at Brown University that killed 2 students and wounded 9 others. The attack on Saturday afternoon set off hours of chaos across the Ivy League campus, Providence, Rhode Island, and surrounding neighborhoods, as hundreds of officers searched for the shooter and urged students to shelter in place. The person of interest was a 24-year-old man believed to be from Wisconsin. However, as of midnight last night, they don't know who. And this guy's been released. One of the busiest times on the academic calendar at Brown University. Exams were going, study groups were going. What we have since learned is the name of the 2 victims who died. One of those victims is a young lady from Birmingham. I'm not breaking any news here. It's been reported in lots and lots of places. Her name is Ella Cook. She was 19 years old. I know her father. Wonderful family. Beautiful young lady. Just like kind of the world was her oyster. So from Birmingham, going to an Ivy League school, if you've been reading closely, you can see the reports that she was the vice president of the Republicans Club at Brown University. As you might imagine, Republicans are in the minority on Ivy League campuses. And yet, even though that she was kind of in a minority political group, everybody said about Ella that she was absolutely one of the kindest people that you would ever meet. Despite a different view of the world, it didn't mean she didn't talk with others and share ideas with others. She was described by her pastor in Birmingham yesterday as being a bright light in a dark world. And I've got a daughter that's 4 years younger than Ella is. And I spent a lot of time yesterday going, what do you do as a parent? The randomness, the hate that fills our world, but just the sheer randomness of, we live in Birmingham. My daughter chose to go to an Ivy League school. She was so proud of it. She was having a wonderful experience. She was studying for finals. Some random guy decided with a 9mm to start unloading in the engineering building in Providence, Rhode Island, and my daughter is gone today? What? Absolutely horrific. We'll keep you up to date with updates from that story as they become available. Right now it's time for your morning sports update. It's brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. Casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. That's all available to you at Pearl River Resort. A couple of Mississippi teams got together on Saturday at the Coast Coliseum. A small crowd for Ole Miss and Southern Miss saw the Rebels knock off the Golden Eagles 71-67. A.J. Storr led the way for Ole Miss with 21 points in the game on 8 of 12 shooting. Patton Pinkins, the freshman, had 12 points. Malik Dia, 11, and Keza Giffa with 13 in the game. Ole Miss shot 49% from the field despite shooting just 29% from behind the arc. Southern Miss only shot 25% from three. Jay Ladner said that this was a tough day for him as well. On Friday night, Jay Ladner found out that he lost his father, said that he apologized to his team, said he may have been a little slow on rotations and substitutions, and that his team was very supportive of him. Did Mississippi State get the win that changes the trajectory of their season? Down 17 in the first half. They cut it to 10 at halftime. Who knew that Jabari McGee was going to have a career-high 29, that Jaden Epps was going to chip in 20, and that Mississippi State was going to rally from that 17-point deficit to get the win against Utah by 8 in Salt Lake City. It's the largest comeback of the Chris Jans era at Mississippi State. Bulldogs led 74-70 with 2.5 minutes to play. Made some free throws, got a big dunk down the stretch. Tuesday night, Mississippi State hosts Long Island. That is the next game on the docket for the Bulldogs. Fernando Mendoza becomes the first player from Indiana University to win the Heisman Trophy. He finished first, and a pretty distant first, in front of Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, followed by Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame and Julian Sayin from Ohio State. So a runaway win for Mendoza in a year where it seemed to be less about the overall numbers and more about the moments, and the moments in big games, clutch moments. And then Diego Pavia telling the voters what he thought of them after not winning the award. And of course, walking that back and apologizing and claiming heat of the moment afterward. Heat of the moment, or peek into the mind? Peek into the soul? Good question. We're back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross. Got your Mississippi Lottery update next.
Come first for news. Fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Time for your Mississippi Lottery update. It is brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery online at mslottery.com. There was no jackpot winner for the Powerball on Saturday night, and so the lottery rolls on. The estimated jackpot for tonight, $1.1 billion. The estimated cash value, $503,400,000. Saturday, December 13th, numbers 128, 31, 57, and 58. The Powerball was 16. The Power Play multiplier was 2. Back-to-back jackpot winners on Mississippi Match 5. On Saturday, a ticket purchased at Sun Express in Tupelo matched all 5 numbers, got that $251,036 jackpot. And then the very next night, the Oaks in Moss Point, ticket purchased there, matched all 5 numbers, won the $50,000 jackpot. Lottery Claims Office paid out $565,000 and change last week, while retailers paid out just a little over $4.8 million. Had a $5 cash money scratch-off winner. Jackson woman won a top prize of $100,000. Bought a ticket at Samish Food Mart in Jackson. Stay tuned to the Mississippi Lottery updates for all that's going on with the Mississippi Lottery. Find them online at mslottery.com, and don't forget about the all-new Mississippi Lottery app. Lance, you sent me a link during the break, and it's a tweet from Laura Loomer. She's an independent investigative reporter and very, very right-wing. We know that. A lot of people in the Trump administration don't like her. And she tweets, the shooter at Brown University yelled Allahu Akbar before opening fire on campus, according to sources. She says, according to sources. And then she says, how come the media is suppressing eyewitness testimony about how the shooter shouted this before he opened fire on campus? Last night at about 11 o'clock, maybe 9 o'clock last night, all of the right-wing online people, about the same time, seemingly, picked up on the fact that this young woman, along with the other victim, but this young woman in specific, Ella Cook, was vice president of the Republican Club, the Young Republicans at Brown University. And the left does some really despicable things, and they spread some really despicable messages. I mean, Chris Murphy was like on cue. He was right there yesterday to throw out gun control, and there's nothing I can do, and I'm going to keep fighting a good fight. And like he was like, yes, got another opportunity to use all my talking points. But the right's right there. Opposite side of the issue, same megaphone to try and paint Democrats in a bad light, a dark light. And look, maybe that is true. Maybe it's true. But right now, they don't even have a suspect arrested. They don't currently have a suspect detained. They had one right away, but not enough evidence to keep him detained. Not even in custody, detained. Not charged with a crime, And yet, the shooter, who we don't have ID of, we don't have a location of, we certainly don't have him in custody, we know his motives? Maybe there was somebody that was there that heard the cat shout, Allahu Akbar. Maybe so. Just color me a little bit skeptical. And for those of you that want to go, oh, Richard, he's in the right's pocket, whatever. No, I'm criticizing the right now. People could not wait to equate this to the murder of Charlie Kirk. Maybe reaching. May turn out to be similar. But my goodness, just give it a second and let law enforcement do their job and figure out what the heck happened here. More MRC right after this.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Well, Santa looks a lot like Daddy, or Daddy looks a lot like him. It's not the way I had him pictured. Santa wasn't much too thin. He didn't come down the chimney, so Mama must have let him in. Yeah, Santa looked a lot like Daddy, or Daddy looked a lot like him.
Welcome to Mornings with Richard Richard, what's my last name? Cross, not across. Richard Cross. Glad to be with you. Or as Lance says, De La Cruz. Thanks for joining us, even if I don't know my name. Glad to be with you. So much to get to this morning, including an extended conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. That's coming up about 15 minutes from right now. We look forward to visiting with him as we close in on the 2026 legislative session. JT Mitchell will be along in the 8 o'clock hour as well. JT, as he always does, will be stopping by to get us up to date with all of the news that is happening. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams, whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business. We're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community member FDIC. C-Spire text line open to you, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Trying to figure out what to get for that hard-to-shop for someone in your life? Maybe there are some ideas at C-Spire. Stop by your local C-Spire store or visit them online at cspire.com. The best phones, the best plans, the greatest technology, not to mention some accessories, some ideas for under the tree. Maybe it's time for that first device for one of your kids. Check them out, cspire.com. The family plans are great. C-Spire, customer inspired. And remind you, this hour of the program is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Yesterday on Face the Nation, hosted by Margaret Brennan. We love old Margot. Always good to hear from her. Kevin Hassett was on. Kevin Hassett works in the administration, director of the National Economic Council. And they were talking about debt and deficit and kind of where we are at the end of the year and how much better we are, or at least on the right track we are. Listen to what Kevin Hassett has to say to Margaret Brennan.
Evidence is mixed, but the point is that we've got deficit going way down. So right now it's looking like the deficit for this year will be $600 billion lower than it was last year. That really helps lower inflation. We've got the trade deficit cut in half from last year. Mm-hmm. And so all these things are things that should continue to move us towards the Fed target of 2%.
All right, so the Fed target of 2% is the inflation number that they're talking about. I'm willing to wait. I don't know if you are or not. I'm willing to wait. And what I'm willing to wait for is assigning a grade for this administration. Because the truth is the economy does not move quickly. At least in terms of the entire picture of the economy. Right? It takes a while. And there are people that point to the economy as being cyclical, and it doesn't really matter who is in office. If you take a really wide range view, you will see that the economy goes up and it goes down, and it kind of works in cycles. And, you know, over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, you can see good and bad. Our snapshot of the United States economy, and frankly the global economy, is still just completely blurred by what happened in 2020, by the global pandemic. Now, you certainly can argue that different leadership might have or should have handled that differently. But are you doing that with the benefit of hindsight? And here's when you really drill down into the amount of money that was spent fighting the COVID pandemic, helping small businesses, helping families, helping big businesses, developing vaccines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Was the problem with who was in the White House? Because remember, it was Trump at the beginning, and then we had a handoff to the Biden administration. If not for the COVID pandemic, Donald Trump would have served his second term successive to his first term. Joe Biden would not have won that election. But he did. And then the spending policies over the next 4 years were just absolutely out of control. But those were spending policies that began, some of them, during the Trump administration. But was there any choice for whomever was the president in terms of where some of that money was spent? I'm getting to a point here, and forgive me for being long-winded about it. When you pull the layers back and you recognize what our response to COVID was, do we give enough blame to the people who were making and pushing the decisions behind the scenes in a way that caused the reaction that we ended up having? Whether it was, and I'm talking about Fauci and the entire medical cabal that had been just waiting for an opportunity like that for their entire careers. They were like a weatherman with fancy toys with a tornado blowing in. Right? It was their moment. The Scarf Lady and Fauci and all the people behind the scenes. I just went from one topic to another and got completely derailed in the process. The point was we're talking about deficit and where we are as a country. And I bring that up because February of 21, our deficit for that year was up over $4 trillion. So where are we at the end of 2025? We're about 1.7 trillion. And you heard Hassan talking about in the interview about 600 billion down year over year. So to the original point where I said, I'll wait, I need to see more than just 1 year. Because when you take a closer look, spending did increase this year under the Trump administration. But our collections also went up, and collections seem to have gone up more than spending increased. And so the deficit that you're running for the year is less than the deficit that you were running a year ago, which was at the end of 4 years of Joe Biden as president. Is this going to be a deal where we see it down $600 billion this year and next year down another $600 billion? And the year after that, maybe down $1.5 trillion in terms of deficit, where we're getting closer to zero? Now you have my attention. Perhaps the most concerning number, though, and Lance can probably speak better to this, although not with 30 seconds until the break. As a country, our debt load now of what, north of $38 trillion is 99.8% of our gross domestic product as a country. And that is concerning. The only time that it has been higher is kind of right around the COVID window. We are at actually, it was just below what it is right now. We're at an all-time high for debt in relation to GDP. I mean, if you go back to the year 2000, we were at like 30%. Now we're at 98.8%, 99.8%. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann joins me next.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Ole Miss will host its first ever college football playoff game on Saturday, and Sports Talk Mississippi will be at the library on the square in Oxford, where you will hear from coaches, former players, and more as we get you ready for one of the biggest games in Ole Miss history. Coverage is brought to you by Pearl River Resort, your destination for casino thrills, family fun, and southern hospitality. That's this Thursday and Friday, the 18th and 19th, and we look forward to being with you. Also glad to welcome our first guest this morning, the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann, joins us in studio. Always a pleasure to see you. Good morning.
Good to see you, Richard. Now, every college team is in a playoff here. You know, all of our Southern Ole Miss and State. Unfortunately, Jackson State lost right at the end, but everybody else is playing.
What do you mean?
Well,
you're talking about bowl games.
Yeah, they're all in bowl games, which makes everybody happy. You'd think we had other things, but when all of our teams are doing really well and going to bowl games, the whole state seems happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's certainly going to be a lot of fun.
You know, I was listening to you on the way in this morning, and of course it's real cold out there, but you were talking about the debt. And that is a pet thing of mine. And I don't want to interrupt any of your questions, but I do want you to know that since 2022, we've not borrowed any money in the state of Mississippi. And in fact, we have paid off $1.4 billion in state debt, which is about 20% of the state's debt. By the time I leave 2 years from now, we'll have paid off a third of the state's debt, $2 billion. So we are doing exactly the opposite of what your monologue was just a minute ago. Not only that, because we're cutting taxes, put $2 billion in roads, all the other things that you see, funded education for the first time 3 times in a row. All of that you see, but what you don't see is we're not borrowing any money. We're actually paying off our state's debt.
No, I think that's a great place to start our conversation. As a state, we are walking around with a billfold in the back of our pocket that is bursting at the seams and doing a lot of things with the money that we have that kind of makes up our budget. In terms of the money that we're sitting on, how much do we have in reserves right now as a state, and is that a good thing? Is it good to be sitting on a pile of cash, or can that money be used in better ways? Do we need to decide how to spend some of it?
Well, you need to take it two steps there. First of all, we have about $1.5 billion in cash. In addition, we have $700 million in the rainy day fund and about another $400 million in the hurricane fund. So if you added all of that up in various and sundry other matters, you'd come to about $3 billion in cash. The capital expense fund, which we can spend on different matters, is about $1.5 million. So that's what we're looking at. And, of course, there are a number of different needs. One, for me particularly, is to fund the retirement plan, which we worked on after we made the change last year. So we want to make sure that our employees and our retirees are funded. That's one chunk of cash that we're looking at. Medicare is another. We've been approached by Medicare and Medicaid that said we need $350 million more recurring expenses for the state to cover the Medicare, Medicaid portion. So there's several big items out there, certainly would absorb some of that. And then, of course, it's healthy to have some cash. Like in your business, in your own personal life, it's nice to have a little savings account. And do you know what our budget was this year? $29 billion with a B. Okay. I mean, it was even after we got through our legislative budget group, which House and the Speaker and me and the Senate members did. It was $29 billion. That's just a staggering amount of money to try to keep up with. $7 billion of it was our tax money, and the remaining portion comes from federal, from Medicare, Medicaid, and a number of other things. So it's a big budget. So when you talk about having $1 billion in the bank, it's really only about, when you look at it, it's about a couple of percent of the money we spend every year. So we're looking hard at that. We like to have a balanced budget, and we like to continue to pay our debt. And we like to continue to pay every year. We reduce income taxes by $100 million. This year will be 3.75 and goes down $100 million every year. Yeah. So, and we're fully funding education. So we've got some additional funds because the real reason, I guess, is because we didn't do any last year. When we did not agree on our budget, and they called us in that we had excess that we might have done for certain projects or certain other matters, but we didn't, and so we accumulated 2 years worth.
Do you anticipate that money that was not spent this year will be spent? That was not spent last year will be spent this year in addition to this year's money?
No, I really look at this with a view towards where we're going, a longer-term view of how we're going to do things. In Mississippi, we have a number of different needs. I mentioned the pension plan and the health care. Those are our two biggest. Our education needs are very, very needy. They require a lot of funds. This year, we want to do another teacher pay raise. It's much past due for that, and that includes our community college and our universities. Our community college teachers, a lot of them are teaching people whose students will then go out and make more money than the teacher does. So it's hard to keep a teacher when when you've got a nurse teaching nurses and they go out and make more money than you do. It's very hard to keep somebody to teach them at junior college and community college level or at the university level. So there are some things I think we need to address to make sure that we're competent. And I look at those as a view and as how our money ought to be spent, not necessarily that we ought to spend it or not spend it. I think it's on how you spend it is more important.
There are a lot of layers to the retirement system conversation to PERS. One kind of new wrinkle that has come as part of the tax plan that was passed a year ago. There was the addition of Tier 5, a new piece of the retirement system, and we heard from the First Responders Association a few weeks ago, and they are asking and trying to work with the legislature on kind of a carve-out that would create a different standard for first responders because of the intensity of that job, the toll that it takes on the body, and also the recruiting, the ability to recruit new first responders into that difficult line of work. When you hear that, what is your reaction?
Well, I happen to be meeting with them today, so we'll be talking
there
about.
You go. Very good.
So we're not far behind. Give me a couple hours, I'll be able to tell you exactly what they'd like to do or not like to do. Our first responders have a different lifestyle. I actually saw that they live longer than most people do just because they stay healthy, which is a good idea for us to keep in touch too. We ought to be staying healthy ourselves. But I'll meet with them today, and we have the new plan's a 401k plan, the equivalent of a 401k plan. So I'm interested in how that's going to go. It's 100% vested. The old plan wasn't vested for 8 years. So there's some things we need to discuss, and particularly on recruitment and how the lifestyle that they have and the dangers that they face every day.
Yeah. Well, and then if you look at something like the group of first responders, which nobody would argue the importance.
Absolutely.
Then you turn around and you ask the question, well, what about the importance of teachers, and should there be a carve-out for them?
Absolutely.
Does it become a slippery slope if you identify one particular group and say, okay, you're going to be outside of this particular part of the retirement system?
It does, and the one thing that you want to make sure, Richard, we were upside down. That's a old Warren County term. We were collecting $2 billion and paying out $3.2 billion. So we were leaking $1.2 billion a year in our retirement plan. So we were headed towards the same thing Social Security is, which is being dead broke in 2034. And what the Congress does with it then, I don't know. But regardless of that, we were headed towards a catastrophe. So we whatever we do, we don't want to get back in where we're headed towards a catastrophe. So we have to be very careful in making sure that the new plan offers a retirement benefit that fits the troubles and the work that these people do for us. But we also got to make sure that we pay the people that are here and the people that have retired already. We owe them an obligation. And so that's what really, I think, moved the legislature this year to make those changes when they hadn't ever been able to do it in the last 20 years. So I was real proud of the legislature to come up with a plan that they thought would be competitive in today's market. And I expect our retirement plans better than you would get at this radio station and at most of the businesses in Mississippi. So
I'll have you take that up with my boss. I'm not going to complain on the air about
I'm just trying to help you out there, buddy.
I appreciate it. We've got a minute until the break, so kind of going back to where we started with that big pile of money that we're walking around with our billfold with $1.5 billion in the bank. Are you for the idea of taking a chunk of that money and throwing it at PERS to take care of that unfunded liability?
I am, and we have been in discussions about that with others in the Capitol, and I'm very interested in that, actually.
It sounds to me like you and the Speaker are actually on the same page on a number of issues, which is not always the case.
Well, we had a couple-hour meeting the other day, and I really had the chance to visit, and we covered a lot of topics.
All right. We'll get to some of that coming up next. Visiting with Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, communitybank.net. We're back with more with the LG right after this.
Happening here in the state.
Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
It's time to get real.
Keeping it real.
It's time for you to get real with it.
And keeping it Mississippi. Your voice for statewide and national politics. Yes! Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Good to be with you this morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann is my guest.
Good morning.
Great to be with you. Really appreciate your time. As always, we are very close at this point to the start of the 2026 legislative session. I know this is something that we've talked about in the past, but every single time you are on or Speaker White is on, people bring this question up. It's something, whether it's a niche group or it's something that people just don't care about in terms of like, just pass it and move on, and that's mobile sports betting. And multiple years the House has said good to go with this, and it really hasn't gotten anywhere in the Senate. I've heard some arguments as to why. Is there any future for mobile sports betting in Mississippi on the Senate side of the Capitol?
Well, I don't know. I haven't met with the head of gaming for our Senate side so far this year. We'll
and
get
that's
together.
Senator Blunt, right?
Right, and we'll get together in January. Usually I meet with all the chairmen then. And so we'll look and see. They've had issues like they arrested the coach for NBA team, players. There have been all kinds of issues about point spreading and inside information and all kinds of other things that have not been conducive to you believing that all of the bets are right. There are some issues with that, and you'd think that they'd be more protected than they are, but they're not. So we'll see what the chairman and members of his committee want to do.
All right. We will see where that goes. My guess is it goes nowhere based on what Senator Blunt said to me a year ago when we had a conversation about this. And it's one of those things that Lieutenant Governor, what I see here is that it feels like most of the people want this, and the gaming industry in Mississippi, or at least enough important players in the gaming industry in Mississippi, don't want it, and that's why it hasn't happened.
It was about an even split last year. I haven't talked to anybody this year about that, but about last year it was about an even split. Clearly, the ones that were more locally owned did not want to do that. They felt like the money would go away and they would be hurt by this budget. And there was some concern about iGaming, which, of course, everybody's denied, but wonder about that, where you can just get on and gamble on the iPhone or whatever you got. And so there was some concerns about that hurting the bricks and mortar. I don't know that those were resolved. I just don't know that they've been addressed yet one way or another.
Yeah. When I visited with Speaker White the other day, I asked him this question. I'll ask you as well. It feels like every single year there is an issue or two that we're not spending a lot of time talking about going into the session that turns into a really big talking point or a really big issue. If you peer into your crystal ball, what might that be this year?
Truancy.
I know that's been an issue for you for a number of years, something that you've talked a lot about, not having kids in school often enough.
Absolutely, and it's getting worse. We're testing well. We're down to 16th in the country, and we're finally we're going to pay our teachers again this year. We're devoting money. Half of our budget goes to education in some form or another. So we're devoting a lot of money to that, but our kids aren't coming back. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this other than to say we have a 27% chronically absent children. That means 1 out of every 4 kids is chronically absent. That means they miss more than 10% of the school year, 18 days. And so many of them, some of these schools have 30 and 40% chronically absent. And what that means is that a third of the time that kid's not there. Yeah. Now, there's a whole series of things that will be proposed by the Senate this year, and hopefully the House as well, to address that issue. This affects, you and I were talking a little bit ago, and I'm glad you brought this up. We were talking about the long-term view. What do you do with the money? How do we go forward? Our long-term view is dark without our kids in school. There is no increase in the labor force participation rate. We can bring all of these companies in here and give them all tax breaks or whatever we get to get them to come here. We got a great working group that comes here. Great, it's like a big neighborhood, water, favorable climate. We got all these positive things, but we won't have a workforce with 27% of our kids are not in school, and it's just as clear to me as that. Yeah. So you talk about things that haven't been discussed as much. I think that's one of them, that we need to get our kids back in school.
And along those lines, we know that school choice and educational freedom is going to be a large topic of conversation this year. You and I have talked about it a lot. Do you see some sort of a compromise bill? I know that the Senate does not seem to have been for universal school choice. I'm not convinced that the individual members in the House are for universal school choice. In talking with Speaker White, that's obviously an agenda item for him. It's an agenda item for the governor that seems to be very important. They say that is kind of a standard for Republicans nationally. What does that look like? Because it does seem that there maybe is a difference in philosophy with leadership on the House side and the Senate side there.
There may be. From our viewpoint, well, let me go back just a second. If you're so good about giving us this time, let's just kind of walk through this.
Sure.
The first thing about this, and people you talk to about school choice is, should a child be able to move from one district to another?
Correct.
To be mobile in there and have a district say they can't do that. Well, the Senate, I think, is in favor of that, and I think the House may well be in favor of that, where you have the ability to move between public schools in this.
Right, that's public to public.
Public to public. And in fact, when I go all over the state of Mississippi, as you well know, when I went around Mississippi, I found out, guess what? This is happening today. On the Mississippi Gulf Coast, I went into one school, Bayou View. It's a great elementary school down there. And so I'll go to these places and I'll walk around and sit in these classes and talk to the teachers and whatnot. And I learn a lot. So finally at the end of that, I asked her, how many kids do you have here? Oh, about 750. Just as a matter of coincidence, how many of those are not in your district? 193.
Oh, really?
So where do they come from? They come from Harrison County. They come from other counties to our district. Well, how many of them are there? 193 aren't in my district. Really? So 193 aren't here. That's correct. Do y'all charge tuition or something? Yes, we charge tuition. We charge $1,500 for a student in this county and $2,000 for a student that comes out of this county. Well, how many of those kids do that? 72. So then I looked at all of the coast. Every school on the coast has a number. Sometimes it's 1,500, sometimes it's 2,000. And these young students are moving around by parental choice and acceptance by the receiving public school. Then I asked in New Albany, how much does it cost from county to school to city? $250. Mm-hmm. All over Mississippi, this is being worked out with capacity, where they have capacity, and where neighborhoods and counties and cities have a correlation in their workforce and what they're trying to accomplish. So before we start messing with stuff, local is the best ones to control this. So when you talk about that, having the ability to be mobile among students, and you talk about allowing the schools to accept kids based on their capacity, this is happening today.
Right.
And we can pass whatever we want to, but this morning, there are a whole bunch of kids around Mississippi doing that very thing.
And that seems to be the part that most everybody is in agreement with.
I'm hopeful.
It is happening, and maybe we need to formalize that. Where the big divide seems to come is the idea of funding public to private, allowing the money that taxpayers are paying locally to follow their student to another district. And then in that scenario, you have people that are dead set for it. It's my tax money and it should follow my student. And you have people that are against it that say, absolutely, you should not be funding private schools with public tax dollars.
That's accurate. When you talk to people about, I think it's hard to get these numbers, but there's about 50,000 kids in private school.
Okay.
So at $6,800 each, that'd be around over $300 million that we would take out of our education budget, which I just told you we proposed the largest education budget ever. It'd take $300 million a year out of that budget and give it to individuals that are attending private schools. And the private schools have been real clear-eyed about it, I think. They don't want any what they call admission creep. So in other words, they don't want to admit anybody that they don't think fits their private school, which is fair. I mean, that's why people pay to go there. They don't want anybody setting their curriculum, which is also fair because many of them have a religious component of some sort.
That's correct.
And they don't want any testing or anybody saying they just basically want the money. And I can understand. I can understand that.
Because the people that are against that talk about accountability and said, hey, if you're going to send that money, then everybody's got to be tested in the same way.
Or there's never been a government largesse where it didn't come with strings, and so that's very worrisome to a lot of kids. And when I talk to private school parents, they say we don't want to take the money because we're worried that there'll be another step that comes with that. So you're right. There's and I would tell you, as I discussed this among the Senate, we'd have to have 27 senators vote for that, and those I don't see those votes being there.
Got a few minutes left with the Lieutenant Governor on the other side of this break. Is a ballot initiative on the docket for this legislative session. We will talk about that coming up next. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From breaking news to bold opinions, Richard dives into the stories shaping Mississippi and the nation. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Our time always goes too quickly with the Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hosemann, joining us this morning on Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi, hitting on a number of issues that could be on the horizon 3 weeks from now when the 2026 legislative session begins. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. Find them online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. I mentioned the ballot initiative process before the break. There are a number of Mississippians who are frustrated to some degree that is not a process that exists right now. It did. It has gone away. There has been some conversation among members on one side or the other about bringing that back and making sure that it's done appropriately. Do you see a future for the ballot initiative process returning in Mississippi?
Well, yes, I do. I think it'll be filed again this year. We lost it on the floor about 2 years ago. It came all the way to the floor of the Senate and was died on the Senate floor. And there was a lot of discussion. As you know, I've been in favor of a ballot initiative if we have the appropriate number of signatures. I don't want us to be Proposition 39 or 150 from California. And so we had proposed a much higher standard for individuals to file. And then there was a number of discussions about issues, 6 or 7 different issues, the right to life issue and other things that should not be addressed in a ballot initiative. And those have been pretty much resolved, I think, at this point. So the bill will come back. I expect it to be filed again this year. And I really don't fear a ballot initiative. I think it's probably healthy to have it there as a method of last resort. But when you look at what the legislature's been doing in the last few years, at least since I've been there, we are addressing everything from taxes to debt, from education to roads, to retirement plans. You pick it, and we're teeing it up. And so I don't know that there's a lot of room for a ballot initiative. I don't know what the topic would be.
We will we'll see where that one goes.
Yeah, we'll see. The bill will come this year. I'll tell you, another bill that will come this year you haven't seen would be to reorganize state government. We've been working on that for a year, and we have too many agency boards and commissions, and they write too many regulations. And so you'll see us propose, from the Senate side at least, you'll see a proposal to reorganize the state government. And that's something that's very needed. It's time. We've addressed big issues every year, from taxes to whatever, and that'll be another one this year. What is the size of state government? And since I've been there, we've shrunk about 2,000 employees less than when I started. We're on target this year to release 965 pins, to terminate those pins this year. Some of those will come back during negotiations, but we're gradually reducing the size of government, and I think that's healthy. And so we have to position government just like they are with everything else, which is where we're going to be 5 and 10 years from now. Sure. And what'll it look like, and what's needed. I'll tell you, things that are needed are like cybersecurity. We have virtually none of it. All the money that's stolen in Mississippi, not all of it, but 90% of it is stolen over the internet. And a lot of them are more seniors and individuals. I've had just call after call about people that are getting scammed over the internet. And so we need to be able to address that. Just like we have a highway patrol, we need to have something that protects our citizens over the internet, and also some recourse. Yeah. So you'll see things, I think, that didn't exist in 100 years ago that's come to the forefront now that need to be addressed, and some things that have been here the last 50 years don't need to be here anymore.
Let me ask you about this as we finish things up, and this is something that I've thrown out to a lot of people and have not I don't think there's been, at least publicly, a lot of appetite for this. There is a case before the Supreme Court right now, Calais versus Louisiana, that would change the court's view on districting and redistricting the congressional maps, and it's a conversation that's happening in a lot of places across the state. We most recently, from the representative from District 2, got Benny Thompson talking about an unfortunate accident when referring to two National Guardsmen that were shot, one that was killed in Washington, D.C. He later walked those comments back, but there are people that say, hey, if the courts open this up, this is an opportunity for redistricting. And frankly, a lot of people look at it as a way to get Benny Thompson out of office. Is there an appetite in the legislature, in your mind, for redistricting if the courts open that venue?
The Congressman Thompson's comments were beyond the pale. We have a dead National Guards person,
yes,
who was shot by an idiot, and another one that's struggling for life. And to say that's an unfortunate incident is beyond the pale. Second, as important to me first, was the fact that we were unconstitutionally redistricted in Mississippi in my Senate seats and in the House seats. So when they ordered us to redo four or five Senate elections and then another House election,
right,
that is also pending in the same vein that you're talking about. Now, for us to have redistrict Congressman Thompson, thank goodness he's not anything else, Congressman Thompson would require us to have a special session. The governor's got to call that because the deadline's coming up here, and I have not visited with him about whether he's going to call a special session or not. And that would be just to extend the actual filing deadline. So okay, that would be the first step in the redistricting on a national level. But we ought to pay attention to what happened to us in the state level. That cost us House seats and Senate seats.
Lieutenant Governor, I appreciate your time. I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and look forward to talking to you once the session begins.
Oh, we're having great years. The state's in the best shape it's ever been in, Richard.
Your Mornings with Richard Cross.
On with the show
Is back.
Holy smokes.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
That takes you way back.
Yeah.
Good morning. 8 o'clock hour. Thanks for joining us. Fast couple of hours so far, and we've got a lot still to get to with you on this cold Monday morning, December the 15th, 2025. We are 10 days from Christmas. We are 16 days from the end of the calendar year and rolling into 2026. It goes very, very quickly. And we are 5 days away from the first college football playoff game being played in the state of Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Just in case you've forgotten, Santa will be working around the clock this Christmas, and he'll be listening to SuperTalk Mississippi. Why? Because a Mississippi Christmas with Steve Azar returns once again this year. It's going to start at 6 p.m. on December 23rd. Steve will play hours and hours of Christmas classics, tunes from Mississippi artists, and even a couple of holiday tunes on his guitar. And on SuperTalk TV, you can watch the Yule log, the burning log in the fireplace, and listen to the music on SuperTalk TV. A Mississippi Christmas with Steve Azar, brought to you by AgraGold.com, Covington County Hospital, and Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch. Thanks for being with us this morning. Your message is coming in on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. I understand that the radio audience is a transient one. You get in and out of your car, you're getting kids together and out to bed, and sometimes you miss things that are said. And so a couple of questions that came in. Did the lieutenant governor insinuate that teachers will get a pay raise next year? I think being definitive with a word like will is a little dangerous, but the lieutenant governor did say that was something that they were looking at again this year and working toward. And he mentioned recent pay raises, something that both Lieutenant Governor Hosemann and Speaker White said last week, reminded us of, is that unlike when MAEP was the formula that went to funding K through 12 education in Mississippi, state government has fully funded education 3 years running. And there is no sign that is not going to be the case once again this year. So certainly that is a move in the positive direction. We have seen teacher pay raises, and it sounds like they are working toward that again this year. So good news on that front. Question also, have we discussed PERS? We talked a little bit about it. Both the speaker and the lieutenant governor in separate conversations that we have had with them sounded like they were open toward the idea of a significant amount of money being put toward PERS. There is that unfunded liability that we talked about a year ago, a number that is getting larger as time goes along. We had the implementation of the Tier 5 system. There are questions about that. Lieutenant Governor Hosemann mentioned that he was meeting with the First Responders Association. We heard from representatives from the police chiefs and fire chiefs in the state a couple of weeks ago about concerns that they have about the Tier 5 system being in place when it comes to recruiting and also length of service time. One thing that Lieutenant Governor mentioned a moment ago is that you don't have that vesting period in place that you did with the PERS system, but that seems to be something that people are willing to live with, right? Willing to have that vesting period in place in order to have better retirement benefits, more guaranteed retirement benefits for workers in place. So we certainly will see where that goes. One message, don't understand why a ballot initiative wouldn't be reenacted. Jackson has already proven they're comfortable saying we know best and disregarding any initiative results. The ballot initiative process needed to be updated. The old system ran into some judicial hurdles because the old system that was in place was designed for 5 congressional districts. We now have 4 of those. And the way that signatures are gathered and the distribution of those signatures would create a ballot initiative. We're in a different place technologically in terms of the gathering of those signatures, and so there's a lot to go into that. We'll see if that is something that is addressed. It sounds like it is going to be a bill that gets some debate, and we'll see where it goes. Thomas says, would you rather have 3 guaranteed Republican and 1 Democrat seats, or likely 2 and 2 after redistricting? I don't know why you think there would be 2 and 2. Why would it not be 4 and 0? That is an issue that people have brought up. Henry Barber, one of the ones that said that, if you pretty reliably have, in terms of congressional representation for Mississippi, you know that generally speaking there are going to be 3 Republicans, and Benny Thompson is going to be safe in his District 2 seat. And are you willing to run the risk, if you redraw the district lines, that could potentially end up 2 and 2 as opposed to 3 and 1? Do you gamble with the possibility of being able to get to 4-0 as opposed to it being 3-1? I suppose that is a reasonable concern. I lean in the direction of trusting the people of the state of Mississippi to decide who they want their representatives to be with fairly drawn districts, not districts that curve in and out of counties and cities and neighborhoods to make sure that they're drawn in a way to dictate the outcome of the elections. Without portability of funds, the system is saying wealthy families get choice, everyone else gets assignment. That is not equity, that is gatekeeping. That is one particular opinion when it comes to how tax dollars are assigned. If you have school choice and transfer options. C-Spire text line with the possibility of legalizing of sports betting online. We have the lottery. What else needs to happen until the state income tax is 100% removed? Yeah, one of the things that Speaker White talked about last week is that in the scenario where you legalize sports gambling, the sports gambling online, the tax revenue that comes from that would have a dedicated place where it goes. I can't remember. Did he say MDOT specifically is where that money would go? There may have been another program that he mentioned. I don't remember exactly. Some teachers make more money than people do at regular jobs every year. I think they get no good payday. When are we going to start getting jobs in lots of counties just paying for those teachers getting a pay raise, the taxpayers? That's from Joey the trucker. I think the role that teachers play in the development of our children is a vital one to the state of Mississippi. There are other issues related to education. I don't think me arguing against a pay raise for teachers is something that you're ever going to hear. It is a profession that is absolutely vital to the health of our state. And we'll see where that goes going forward. Rob Reiner and his wife were killed in their home yesterday. JP in Corinth says, I didn't care for Rob Reiner's politics, but I loved his movies. Sad news about he and his wife. I think I read this morning that the primary suspect is Rob Reiner's son, with whom he had made some movies recently. Scary stuff. All right, I mentioned Benny Thompson just a moment ago. I've mentioned his name several times. We'll let you hear. So there was a House hearing. He is the chair of the Homeland Security Committee. I was having a conversation with Kristi Noem, the director of Homeland Security, and she responded to something that he said, and he later kind of walked this back. But sometimes when people tell you what they believe, you should believe them. Here's Benny Thompson.
Madam Secretary, you and the gentleman from NCTC reference the unfortunate accident that occurred with the National Guardsman being killed.
You think that was an unfortunate accident?
I mean,
it was a terrorist attack.
Wait. Look, I'll get it straight. Then you can
He shot our National Guardsman in the head.
Look, Mr. Chairman, will you direct the witness to allow me to ask my question?
We split wood with an axe. We ask questions. An unfortunate accident. The National Guardsman being shot, one of them in the head and killed in Washington, D.C., says Mississippi Representative Benny Thompson.
From the with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi.
Glad to be with you this morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you being part of the conversation. The C-Spire text line is the best way to do just that. 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395. So as not to be accused of cherry picking, I'll give you the follow-up from Benny Thompson. So Director of Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has slammed Representative Benny Thompson of the 2nd District of Mississippi for on Friday referring to the shooting of 2 West Virginia National Guard soldiers as an unfortunate accident. Thompson is the top Democrat on the House Homeland Security Committee, made the remark during a hearing Thursday on Capitol Hill, a hearing that was titled Worldwide Threats to the Homeland. He was speaking with Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Gabbard went on Fox and Friends the next day, and she said it's absolutely infuriating. He cannot and refuses to directly identify this attack for what it was, a terrorist attack on our own soil against our National Guard, men and women in this case, who are putting their lives on the line. That shooting in Washington, D.C. happened the day before Thanksgiving, just blocks from the White House, allegedly by an Afghan refugee. And Benny Thompson went on CNN, and a bit of a clumsy question and a clumsy answer, but this is Benny Thompson saying that he used the wrong words. Here you go.
In the back and forth with you, she called you out when you were speaking and asking her a question, and you called the shooting and killing of the National Guard member that happened recently an unfortunate accident. You then called it an unfortunate situation. The man is charged with first-degree murder. Congressman, do you believe it was an accident?
Absolutely not. And obviously, let me be clear. I was moving toward the discussion that she could not blame Joe Biden on the situation because she approved this person's asylum application. And that's where we were headed. And
you're
so
saying you
the
misspoke?
issue is, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so Benny Thompson says that he misspoke. Words matter. Words matter. And he called the death of a National Guard member who was shot in Washington, D.C., and I think was part of the crew that was absolutely is part of the crew that is against the National Guard being used for protection in our cities domestically. He called it an unfortunate accident, and then he doubled down and said an unfortunate situation. Lance, you and I were talking off air a little while ago, and I think you said, and I maybe even finished your sentence, when somebody tells you who they are, maybe you should believe them.
Yeah.
And how about the quickness with which he immediately turns it political and reassigns the blame?
Can't blame Joe Biden.
Yeah. Lack of accountability. Go figure. Good to be with you this morning. I'm curious, did we pay enough attention to the oil tanker that was seized last week? The Venezuelan oil tanker flying under a Guyanan flag. Interesting op-ed from the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal. President Trump taking action beyond rhetorical threats to squeeze Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro out of power. The U.S. seizure of an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast hits the dictator in the pocketbook, which is why Maduro is screaming so loudly. U.S. officials say the ship was flying under the flag of Guyana, though it isn't registered there. The Treasury previously sanctioned the ship for smuggling Iranian oil. It was a legal seizure, as the seizure was executed with a warrant. Officials are also leaking to the press that this seizure won't be the last. Maduro relies on oil export revenue to fund his regime and keep his military happy. Without this cash flow, panic may grow in the ranks, all the more so if the oil was headed for Cuba, which relies on Venezuelan crude to keep its lights on. Cutting off oil flow to Cuba could increase unrest in Havana, writes the editorial board. They go on to point out that Mr. Maduro is accusing the United States of piracy. However, he is the one who stole the Venezuelan democracy, causing millions of his countrymen to flee. More than 8 million Venezuelans live in exile, destabilizing societies across the hemisphere while propping up the Cuban police state. You may remember that in 2024, Maduro lost an election, and yet he remains in power. The opposition leader is Maria Corina Machado. She recently escaped Venezuela, perhaps with the assistance of the CIA. She is currently in Norway, where she was to receive a Nobel Peace Prize, though the ceremony had already passed when she finally arrived. She did meet with leaders, and the culmination of the editorial in the Wall Street Journal is this: having committed the U.S. to oust Mr. Maduro, Mr. Trump is obliged to follow through. And there are a lot of people that say, why are we getting involved in Venezuela? The headline has been the drug boats and the amount of illegal narcotics that are coming into the United States from that narco state. The sub-headline, though, may be related to oil. Oil is what is funding Maduro's regime. Proceeds from that oil are being used to prop up other terrorist organizations and terrorist states, dictatorships. It's a bad situation. Is it in the best interest of the United States to have Maduro out? Probably so. Should the United States be getting involved when much of the campaign from President Donald Trump was about no more wars, taking care of things at home? That seems to be the sticking point for a lot of people. Interesting news from Capitol Hill also on this point. Senator Bill Cassidy is a Republican from Louisiana. He was the author of the legislation that got shot down in the Senate last week with regard to the HSA payments. Instead of money going to insurance companies or funding the ACA subsidies going forward, having that money go into accounts for Americans to use for out-of-pocket expenses. Cassidy was on an interview with CNN's State of the Union and said talks are underway on a deal that would couple the GOP proposal for health savings accounts with a version of the Democratic proposal that would temporarily extend the tax credits. He said to CNN's Dana Bash, Republicans have pushed that we would put money in the patient's pocket so that she has something to pay the out-of-pocket costs. Democrats are saying, let's do something about premiums. I think, Dana, there is a deal that could be made. Why don't we do both? He goes on to say, let's go ahead and not give the profit to the insurance company, but the protection to the patient by giving them access to an account, a wallet, a purse, a pocketbook, if you will, that would have up to, pick your family, $1,000 to $5,000 to pay those initial expenses, but also do something on the premiums with maybe a temporary extension of the enhanced premium tax credits to address it for some, those who really have high expenses. I think there's a deal that could be done. Is this good policy, or is this kicking the can down the road? Problem is, for a lot of these Republican senators, They represent states where large portions of the population are relying heavily on those ACA credits because they get their insurance through the exchange. We created such a mess when the ACA went into place. And everybody is paying more than they were paying previously. Now, I guess the byproduct is more people have insurance.
From the Seabrook's with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Great being with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi, streaming online at supertalk.fm and Supertalk TV. It's all presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community. At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. Looking to manage your personal finances, our banking services make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. Ready to grow your business? We offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your business thrive. Dreaming of a new home? Our mortgage specialists are here to make the process seamless, all designed with you in mind. We're more than just a bank. We're your partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. At this time on Monday mornings, every Monday morning, we are joined by the one and only, the great J.T. Mitchell. He is the news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. He rarely sleeps. He almost always shows up on Monday mornings at 8:37. And it is a pleasure, my friend. How are you? Hope you had a good weekend.
You're sweet, Richard. I had a great weekend. How about you?
I'm sweet.
Yeah, you're saying Thanks. I'm the great J.T. Mitchell?
The great J.T. Mitchell.
I don't know about that. Depends on who you ask.
It was a cold day yesterday, start to the day today, and that's okay, because it's about to warm up again.
Yeah, it'll be 70 by the end of the week, I'm sure. Hey, I like the cold weather. Literally, you're right. I like the cold weather. I don't have a problem with it.
I'm with you. I like it. I like the seasons. I told Lance earlier today, I said, I prefer to go to the cold now, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I want snow and cold, I'll go to it.
Where you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Rather
it's all about mindset.
It's about mindset. Here, you never know what you're going to get. So,
I was reminded, though, this morning that 14 degrees is indeed cold.
It is, but I'm sure your F-150 has the heated steering wheel and all that good stuff.
It does, but I haven't been in it this morning, so, I'll warm it up. I did have my daughter send me a text, be like, could you crank my car before I go to school?
I wish. Sure. One thing I wish I had on my car was where you could click it from the fob, and it would crank itself. Yeah, don't have that yet. Maybe one day.
We are coming up on filing deadlines for candidates that want to be on the ballot in 2026. Those are moving very, very close now, and there is a new name that is potentially going to be running against Benny Thompson. Maybe he can just run on National Guardsman being shot was more than an unfortunate accident. Kevin Wilson is seeking that District 2 seat. What does that mean in this race?
Yes.
Because history tells us it means absolutely nothing.
History would tell you that a Republican announcing against Congressman Thompson is a waste of an election.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that spending this morning, and I got the press release on Saturday, but really spending this morning getting into Kevin Wilson's resume, he may be the most viable Republican candidate that Benny Thompson has seen in recent years. I mean, typically, you just wait until the general's over and Congressman Thompson's won with 70+% of the vote. That's generally how it goes. But Kevin Wilson, I mean, he seems to be really well liked in Southwest Mississippi. He's an independent oil man. He's actually the largest independent oil and energy producer in the state. He's on the Adams County Board of Supervisors, and he's been president of the county board for 2 years now. And, another element that Kevin brings to the table seemingly is that there's somewhat of this appetite nationwide, and in this state for that matter, for those in the business sector who decide to jump into politics. I mean, Kevin Wilson's 64 years old. He didn't get into politics until he was 58. An extreme example of that is Donald Trump, even though Trump flirted with politics at certain points during his previous business career. But Wilson seems to be well-liked, and he's just the latest to file. You have Benny Foster, who's a Democrat. He's the chief operating officer at New Vineyard Church in Jackson. He's running against Benny Thompson in the Democratic primary. And then you have Ron Eller in the Republican primary as well. And he's ran before. He was the Republican nominee in 24, but got smoked by Congressman Thompson.
Okay. Well, we'll see where that goes. Ole Miss hosting a college football playoff game on Saturday. Kickoff for that game is at 2:30. The Rebels hosting the Tulane Green Wave at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Student tickets became available on Friday evening. 13,000 student tickets for Ole Miss. Those priced at just $25. So they get a deal. Everybody else paying out the wazoo for tickets for this ball game. It's significant because of just how big a sporting event is. Some would argue the biggest in Mississippi history. Rick Cleveland wrote an interesting column, by the way, last week. If you haven't read that, you should, about another event that happened in the late 1800s that might be the biggest sporting event in Mississippi history. It was the last bare-knuckled heavyweight title fight, and by happenstance, it happened on a farm in Mississippi. Went like 80 rounds. But
which one's going to make more money?
I'm sure somebody's pockets were lined by that happening years ago.
That was a great column by Rick, who's one of the best in the business.
It was certainly interesting. But economic impact is one of the things that a lot of people are looking at, not just for Ole Miss, but for the city of Oxford and the state of Mississippi.
That's right. And it's the first football game that's ever been played at Ole Miss in the month of December.
Okay.
And so that's a big deal. Typically, that economic impact runs out in November. But here we are, this Saturday on December 20th. Of course, it's going to be arguably the biggest game to this point in every player's career who's out there. But it also could be the biggest game in the city of Oxford's history. I mean, Robin Tannehill, the mayor, said last week, she gave us some numbers. So if you looked at the 2024 season, the average economic impact of a home game weekend was about $46.5 million. This year, you had Tulane earlier in the year. That one brought in $64 million because New Orleans isn't a bad drive. LSU this year brought in $74 million, and she believes this weekend will be higher than that. So we're looking at $74+ million in economic impact.
And it touches a lot of areas, right? I mean, it touches the hotels, it touches the restaurants, it touches the retail businesses. There is the food and beverage tax, a lot of people call it it was the stadium tax initially. It was years and years ago for the construction of OU Stadium in Swayze Field, a hospitality tax that was put in place that helped the city fund construction for their part of the stadium, and it's remained in place. It did not have a sunset provision, which has proven to be lucrative for the city of Oxford for a really long time. By the way, Robin Tannehill will join Sports Talk Mississippi, I think, on Thursday afternoon this coming week when Sports Talk broadcasts live from the library on the Oxford Square, Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, leading into that college football playoff game.
Yeah, that'll be good. Liquor stores and bars also do really well during these weekends.
Yes, they certainly do.
So this weekend with Tulane in Oxford, over 300,000 people are set to be there. Now, how many people does Vaught-Hemingway seat?
Capacity is 64,038. The expectation is the crowd will be in the neighborhood of 68,000 in the stadium.
So you got a lot more people coming to just hang out, spend the weekend in Oxford. It's a good deal. I mean, there's so many positives of a playoff game coming to Ole Miss. And, of course, we've been through the sagas with Lane Kiffin and all that, but here we are. Ole Miss has the chance to not only be in the playoff, but go to the quarterfinals, the Sugar Bowl. It's a big time for Ole Miss football.
Jesse Itzler wrote a book years ago called Living with the Monks. You spent some time with Buddhist monks this weekend. Is that accurate?
Last Thursday night.
Okay.
Yes.
You spent the night with them?
No, they didn't invite me to spend the night.
You'd have had to be quiet.
Vows of silence. But if you missed it, there is a collective of about 24 Buddhist monks who are walking 2,300 miles from Fort Worth, Texas, to Washington, D.C. They're called Walk for Peace, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're just walking to raise awareness about peace across mankind, across this country, across the world. And they came through Mississippi last week. They're still here, actually, but they went through Natchez. Natchez gave them a recognition letter. They came through Jackson. Hundreds of people came out to the Capitol to meet them. I unfortunately missed the Jackson stop. I was telling my wife, I wish I could have made it. She said, they're in Pelahatchie tonight.
Oh.
I said, yeah. She said, why don't we just drive there? I said, well, that's a great idea. And so we drove to Pelahatchie, made a little Thursday night road trip, got to converse with them some. They were so nice.
How were they dressed?
As you can imagine.
It's got to be a cold walk if they're doing the monk robes and sandals.
That's right, and it hasn't come without trials and tribulations. They had one guy get hit by a car.
Hold on. No. Stop. Okay. You got to tell us more about that on the other side of the break.
Didn't happen here, though. Did not happen here.
That's good. JT hanging out with the Buddhist monks as they make their way through Mississippi. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. We're back to wrap it up with you right after this.
From the Venerable. Let's go. Waking up the Magnolia State. Mornings with Richard Cross. That's what it's here for. Super Talk Mississippi.
I'm feeling a little bit better about the conversation we were having before the break. JT told us that the monks that were making their way through Mississippi as part of their Walk for Peace were robed in traditional Buddhist monk garb, so they've got the robes on. It does appear that they have allowed themselves to wear base layers. I even see you do have some of them that are in their sandals or flip-flops that you would expect, but I do see a pair of Hokas and a pair of On Clouds as well. So,
and do you blame them?
No, I don't blame them. I'm glad that they are eschewing tradition for reliable comfort.
They are still sleeping in tents.
Okay.
Which is pretty incredible considering this morning they woke up and it was 21 degrees in Meridian.
Hey.
And so today they'll do their 18 or 20 miles and make it to the Alabama border.
Very good.
And, it hasn't been a journey without trials and tribulations, like we said before the break. When they were in Dayton, Texas, so they have a pilot RV with them because the leader of the group, he actually joked with me. I was like, so are you guys going to walk back from D.C.? He said, no, we're riding back. You can see that right there. We will be riding back. And so they have a pilot RV with them, but a driver in Dayton, Texas didn't stop, hit the RV, which hit two of the monks, and one of them had to get his leg amputated. And so he was left behind. I know. And the rest of them are still trekking along. And I will say that, if you're one of those Mississippians out there, which I know there are a lot of you who just try to be nice every day, keep doing that because they said everybody in the state was great to them.
Outstanding.
They said the hospitality state is real. They felt really good about everybody they met, all of the police escorts, the dining options. I know Brandon, a restaurant there, fed them for free. All the people who came out to meditate with them, they were very pleased with the people of Mississippi.
Late last week, I think it was Thursday afternoon, Jeremy McClain, the athletics director at Southern Miss, introduced to his football team their new head coach, Blake Anderson, who was on staff with Charles Huff and is being retained to be the new head coach. Blake Anderson going to officially be introduced today as the next head coach at Southern Miss.
That's right. So he will be officially introduced, or should I say reintroduced, but this time as the head football coach at 1:30 today. The public is invited. It's inside the Trent Lott Center on campus, east of M.M. Roberts Stadium. Parking is available in Championship Lane. It is the doors will open at 1 p.m. And then after the introduction to the public, there will be a press conference. So, of course, we'll have somebody there. If you're a USM fan who can't make it or live too far away or whatever, just go to supertalk.fm and we'll have a recap article.
There is a story that is continuing to develop that is happening in Providence, Rhode Island after the shooting that happened on Brown University's campus on Saturday. I talked about this in the 6 o'clock hour this morning. The young woman, the 19-year-old woman who was killed, is a Birmingham, Alabama native. And by all accounts, and I actually know her father, a lovely young woman from a great family. Happenstance. It just happened to be where she was when this happened. There is the press in Rhode Island is pressing the local police chief, the attorney general, and Brown officials on why there is not video evidence or a better picture. And law enforcement continues to say, we're giving you the best that we've got. And there are people that are just going, how is that even possible? This is a interesting and scary investigation to follow.
It is. And the girl from Birmingham,
Ella Cook.
Ella Cook, just terrible, 19 years old. I went to a university that did not have cameras. I can't speak for Brown University. Maybe they have some cameras. Maybe they don't.
The Attorney General late last night in a press briefing described it as, this is a new building that's attached to an old building, and parts of it have cameras and parts of it don't, and I don't know what you want me to, I can't make it up. I wish we had better footage.
Yeah.
You take him at his word, that's what they're dealing with, but...
I know a lot of people wish they had better footage because they did arrest a person of interest yesterday, but I believe this morning they were released.
Was released last night.
And so, as of now, nobody in custody that we know of. And school is supposed to be a safe, fun place. Too many school shootings happen. K through 12, college. It's hapless. And it stinks for the families and people like Ella Cook.
This young lady was described as a bright light in a sometimes dark world. Gone far, far too soon. Thank you for being with us, JT. Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you, Richard.
Lance, appreciate your work as always.
Of course. Thank you, sir.
And we hope you have a great day. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. We're back with you tomorrow morning just after 6 o'clock. Until then, stay warm and have a great Monday.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.